Julie, Danielle, welcome back to Seeing Other People. I'm so excited to have you. It's been like a hot 2 years since you guys were last on the pod before we actually became friends.
A
Yeah.
very hot 2
We
years.
thought we were banned from the pod because we were just like awful guests.
We were
So it's an
ridiculous.
honor to be back.
Also,
oh my God, never.
way back when we were like, oh my God, we're on Alana Dunn's podcast. And now we're like,
Wait.
Alana Dunn's our best friend.
We have to talk about, Danielle, what you did to like get in touch.
What did I do? What did I
You
do?
you signed up for a dating app profile revamp, had a meeting with me and Jonah, paid us.
Literally
Oh my
paid
God,
for the
you
Patreon.
literally paid.
I literally was like, I need them to recognize me somehow. And then like, they're going to fall in love with me. And then maybe we'll do like a brand partnership.
This is a great audio clip for future investors if you want to know how scrappy we are.
This is
They
how
They
scrappy
do the
we are.
most. Like you guys really like talk about grassroots marketing. You should teach a course in it. Truly.
Love
I wouldn't have a class that would have me to teach a class.
Like we tried nursing, we're doing the dating app thing. If we need to reinvent ourselves again, which we won't, but if we need,
For sure.
marketing.
Totally.
For
Love
sure.
it. All right. Give everyone a little refresher on you guys on Fourplay. It's funny because I was like, oh, well, let's not talk about Fourplay, but like obviously we're going to talk about Fourplay because why the fuck wouldn't we? Let's hear it.
And who doesn't love to talk about foreplay? But we don't have to talk about foreplay FOUR that much. We can certainly talk about FORE. So I'm Danielle, and I am one of the co-founders of Fourplay. And Fourplay is an app where single friends pair up with one another and create a team profile, and then they match with other pairs of single friends because we think that double dates create a lower pressure, safer, and more fun way of meeting other people.
And I'm Julie. I echo all of that. And I'm ready to talk about the other kind of foreplay.
I guess we're changing what we're talking about this episode. No, but you guys, seriously, you're always asking for like more fun, less pressure, safer ways to date. And I know I've talked about Fourplay a million times, but part of what makes Fourplay so amazing is literally these two girls right here. And it like, they're not just founders, like they're actual daters. They have experienced like the deep, dark places of dating. And they've really set out to like do us all a favor and make it more fun and make it better for us and make it a more, entertaining and just lighthearted experience. Like I always say like, I wish I was single so that I could use Fourplay. So I can't, but you guys can.
You're giving us way too much credit. We set out to make it better for ourselves.
Yeah, we were like, okay, we need something. We want to have fun. But
That's
like
the best motivation.
Yeah.
Totally.
But a byproduct is that tens of thousands of other people are having a really great time
Totally.
too. So it's pretty amazing.
And it's not like we're saying like this is the alternative or like this is what you should be doing instead of other dating apps. Like we're all about the Hinges, Bumbles, and Tinders of the world. Like we're on those apps too. It's just like sometimes we need to mix it up a little bit and we need to take the pressure off of dating and kind of put a buffer in there. So we're putting that buffer in a single person's life.
Absolutely. I love that. So there are a few things that we plan to talk about today, but we didn't really plan anything. But one of the things that I thought would be interesting to talk about was having Julie explain why Danielle is still single and having Danielle explain why Julie is still single. And when we got on this recording a few minutes ago, I was like, all right, like based from all the stuff I sent, like, what are you down to talk about? What are you not? And they had a really interesting response, which I'm so glad you guys are pushing back on this. And they were like, well, why is that even a question to begin with? Like, why are you still single? So let's talk about that. I'm curious, like, as you started talking about that, how did that come up?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like to play devil's advocate and I like to push the boundaries. And then Danielle likes to push my buttons. So
Right. So she was like, well, I think we should press back on that question. And I was like, okay, but I'm going to have a little discourse with you.
Yeah. I will say that I saw the question and I laughed first because it was pretty funny. And there are like a million reasons that we could each come up with as to why the other is still single. And then I was in the shower having my shower thoughts as I do. And my thought went to, okay, we all talk about how being single isn't inferior. Being single isn't worse than being in a relationship. But why does someone who is single get posed the question, why are you still single? As if it is like why are you still single? Like, you shouldn't be single. Like, you're so great. You should be in a relationship. And no one in a relationship is really ever asked, why are you in a relationship? You're so amazing.
Right. And I think that if it really were taken at face value and I were asked, why are you still single? And I could respond to that in a neutral way, the same way that a person would respond if I said, why are you in a relationship? That would be one thing. But the real question behind the question is, what are you doing wrong that you're still single?
Mm-hmm.
The real question
Yeah.
is like, what's wrong with you that
Mhm.
you're still single? And we even ask that about, when we see people on dating apps and we see their age and and they're like super cute and they have like amazing profile, like they have an amazing job, they look like they're close with their family, and it's like, but why is he still single?
Mm-hmm.
It's you're asking like, but what are his red flags?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really what the question should be.
And
It's not.
in pop culture, like, was it yesterday, 2 days ago, the Jonah Hill stuff came out about what he was texting his ex, and I saw somebody's response or something was, well, if a man is still single at 40, whatever, like, that says something. And that's like shots fired. Like,
Yeah.
what? Because he's single in his 40s? Like, I know a lot of really amazing people who are single in their 40s or about to be 40 or in their 50s, and they're totally fulfilled in their lives.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. I completely agree with all of that, and I respect and love the pushback. For me, I want to kind of correct the idea of like, well, what's wrong with you? Because there's nothing wrong with you. I know both of you. I know there's nothing wrong. I mean, there's something wrong with all of us, but like, that's not what I meant. And I think that's part of the problem where sometimes we say things that can be taken in a lot of different ways. And so I'm not sitting here trying to defend myself and say, oh, I didn't mean describe what's wrong with each of you. But I think it actually can bring up a really interesting conversation of what are some things that, like, if your goal is to be in a relationship, what
Yeah.
are some things that you're doing that maybe aren't serving you best? And the reason
Mm,
I wanted you guys to answer about each other is because I think we actually learn a lot about ourselves when our friends call us out on things like that.
Mm.
yeah.
However, as I'm hearing myself explain it, it still goes back to like the negativity of like, why is that a question we even ask people?
And just to be clear, like, you are the sweetest, loveliest person ever. I did not take your question with any offense
Oh,
at
I
all. I
know.
was just playing
Don't
devil's
worry. I know.
advocate.
No, it's more about the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because I think it's always about like the societal expectation to be working towards the next thing. So it's like single
Mhm.
people get asked like, why are you single? People in a relationship get asked, when are you getting engaged? People who are engaged get
Right.
asked, when are you getting married? People who are married are asked, when are you having kids? You have a
A
kid. It's like,
hundred
oh, well, like
percent.
when's the next one? So
A hundred
it's more
percent.
this weight of like, well, you're doing this thing. So are you working towards the next thing yet?
Mhm,
Totally.
mhm.
And I also think that like it is a fair question to ask the friend or the loved one, why do you think that person is still single? Because because the friend or the loved one is able to see things that are blind spots for the single person.
Mm.
But I also think that when you say, if they want a partner, what are they not doing right? What is not serving them? It actually might be they're doing something right so that they don't settle. Like they're
Yeah,
actually taking all of
absolutely.
the necessary steps they need to take to assess that somebody does meet their standards. So it's not necessarily what aren't they doing right, but what could they potentially be doing so that they could live up to their own expectations.
Yeah. And the answer could even be like, oh, like Danielle's doing an amazing job. She just hasn't met somebody who
Right.
is really the right fit for her yet. Like that could be a completely valid answer. And that's also an answer, like people get really anxious about going home to their families over the holidays because if they're single because they are afraid of getting asked this question. That's something where if you're anxious about that with a certain group of people, where it's going to come up,
Mhm.
like have that answer ready because that's a completely valid answer.
Honey, we don't have to go home to get it from our families.
Well, it's interesting because I have a different experience from Julie, so
Yeah.
I'll let you share what it's like for you when your family pressures you in that way, and then I think I can share a little bit as to why I don't have as much pressure.
Yeah. Well, my family, I'm the youngest of four, and by a lot. So my three older siblings are all in their 40s. I'm 31. They're all married and have children or are trying to have children. And my parents have been married for 47 years.
Wow.
And so they all live a very traditional
Mm-hmm.
life. And something that has become a huge topic in therapy for me, admittedly, is this pressure that they're putting on me because I'm obviously very career focused right now. I'm trying to build a business and have sacrificed a lot of my financial life, my social life for it. And it feels like it's not enough. The question is still when I go home, so are you seeing anyone? So what's going on with dating? So what happened with that guy? What, you didn't like him after 2 dates? What's wrong with you that you didn't like him after 2 dates? What's the,
You're too picky.
you're too picky, yeah. Which I mean, fair, but like I don't want to settle. And
Right.
I'm not picky like I need a supermodel. That's not what I'm picky about. I need somebody who's intellectually stimulating and also can match my fucking hilarious humor. Is that too much to ask?
Yeah, you're really funny.
We need both. I'm sorry. So that to me is hard because I don't feel like anything is wrong with me that I'm single. I think it's totally fine. I think I'm extremely fulfilled in many aspects in my life. And if I can meet somebody who further fulfills me, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need to just grab someone to grab someone. Honestly, like the only part that like lacks in my life from not having a romantic partner is the physical sexual part, right? And I'm a human and have needs like everybody else. So that's probably the one place where it's more challenging. But I don't feel less fulfilled. I don't feel inferior except for when it becomes a topic of conversation of,
Mm-hmm.
so are you dating? So what's going on? So what's wrong with you that you don't want to settle down? Don't
Right.
you want to have kids? What's, you're 31. Then it's like, oh shit, something's wrong with me.
And the idea of like, well, don't you want to start your life? Like, we just want you to like start your life. And it's like, but my life to me, as far as I'm concerned, has already begun. But now you're making me feel like my life as it is unworthy. Like, I don't
Isn't good
actually
enough.
start a worthy life until I'm
And it
with someone.
certainly doesn't come from a bad place. I
Right.
mean, they like really have my best interest at heart and they just want me to be happy. And maybe they think because I don't have what they all have, that I'm not as happy as I could be. But I also have been an aunt since I'm 18 years old. I see how difficult it is to have children and to start a family. And it's a lot of work. And so I'm not rushing into that. When I find the right person, then I will do that if that's what I want to do.
I love how you can sit here and I believe every word that you're saying, but you're like, my life has begun. My life is in full force. I'm doing all of these things that fulfill me and that I'm passionate about. And that is so frustrating to be told by other people, like, oh, well, because you haven't done this thing, you're right. Like you said, like, is my life not worthy to you? Is my life not good enough? And it's tough because I'm sure there are times where you wanna say, like, where you wanna push back on them, and maybe you do or maybe you don't, but to say, like, "Well, I'm sorry that you felt like you needed to meet somebody in order to be fulfilled," like, that's not me, and that's not how I feel, and I've surrounded myself with people, I've built up this life for myself that I'm really proud of and that I feel really good about every day, and, like, I don't wake up every day thinking, "Oh, is today the day I'm gonna meet my person so I can start my life?"
It's just so difficult for some people to believe that because
Yeah,
their core belief is like fact to them. To them, it's like you can't enjoy your life if you haven't met your partner and you're taking the next steps. That is their belief. It's
yeah.
it's similar to me. I don't experience any of that in my family, which we could get into, and I think in a way that's unhealthy. But what I do experience in my family is, and trigger warning to anybody who suffers from, negative body image, body dysmorphia, eating issues. I gained a shit ton of weight over the past 5 years, 4 years maybe, from binge eating. And I used to restrict. So I used to be really, really, really small. And my parents have made so many comments over the years about how they're worried that I won't find somebody in the size body that I'm in right now. And it took me a very long time and a lot of therapy with an eating disorder specialist to recognize that that is actually just their true belief. They are not trying to make me feel inadequate. They are not trying to tell me, like, we don't love you as our daughter. They do love me, but my dad has expressed he sees it the same way as if my daughter's walking in front of me in the street and there's a pothole. I'm gonna, of course, tell her there's a pothole. If I recognize something, if I recognize a situation that isn't good for her, I'm gonna tell her there's a pothole in front of you. So he thinks that he should share with me that he worries I won't find someone in this body.
Okay, our families are like gonna
So-
be like, what's going on in this episode? Like,
We don't have to tell them about this episode.
We're gonna keep this episode under
Yeah,
wraps.
yeah.
But I think an important distinction to make there is not that your parents are saying you're not going to find somebody in this body. What they were saying, I believe, at the time was you were really struggling with your body image and your eating habits, and they were saying that you are going to have a hard time finding someone if you continue to allow yourself to spiral and not address what was going on.
Yeah, and that's actually not what I was referring to, because I'm trying to make the parallel between the core belief that you need to be with somebody to have a happy life and the core belief that the world is an awful place for people who live in plus-sized bodies. And
Yeah.
our family members are truly think that they're protecting us. And for me, it actually took me saying to my parents in therapy together, saying to my parents, like, we don't agree on this core belief.
Yeah.
And I am trying to change that belief. And so we just, if you can't see eye to eye with me or have any wiggle room, or that's like a rough religion to you, then we can't talk about the topic, period. We cannot talk about my weight. We cannot talk about how my appearance affects my being in the world. It's just it's a topic we will not touch with a 10-foot pole. And you kind of had to do the same thing with your parents, being like, we're not going to talk about partners ever again. Do not speak to me about it.
My therapist was like, how have I not gotten hate mail yet? Because my entire life I've been such a pushover and just like let people say whatever they want. And like for the first time ever a few weeks ago, I was like, we're done talking about this, or like we're just done talking because
Yeah.
I'm done hearing about it.
Yeah. Danielle, I want to go back to one thing you said in that conversation with your parents, that you're trying to change this belief. Do you mean that you shared the same belief as them and you were trying to change it internally for yourself, or that you were trying to change their belief?
I definitely was on the same page with their belief, as I think a lot of people are, whether or not they're willing to consciously think of that belief that way. I do think that there are a lot of people, especially people who live in our area in New York City, who do, on some perhaps subconscious level, believe that their experience in the world will be better and that other people will have more respect for them if they look a certain way. And that is something that I definitely believed, because that's something that I was raised in, not only in my own home, but I think in just the culture I was raised in. And so when I started to challenge that belief and I learned that there actually are other people who don't believe that, there are other people who believe in, you know, health at all sizes, and that you deserve to experience joy no matter what size you are, and that people will gravitate to you because of confidence and not because of appearance. When I started to lean into that, and like I got more evidence that was like drops in the bucket, I tried to convince my parents, but they weren't immersed in like eating disorder therapy like I was. They
Of
so
course.
they couldn't get there as fast as like I wanted them to, and so I just realized like I don't know if you'll ever get there, and that's okay.
In part of your healing journey, I'm curious, while you've gone through all of this, did it impact the way you were either dating or not dating? Because I hear this all the time from people. Like, I started with like, I gained a lot of weight over COVID. I'm really anxious about like putting pictures on dating apps, or I don't feel like I can like go on a date because I don't think somebody's going to like accept me for me. So I'm curious if like in what ways did it impact your dating life, or is it still, and how have you tried to navigate that and work through that?
So, as I said before, like there are so many people who do
Yeah.
hold that belief. And so that has impacted my dating life because I can't deny that other people do believe that. And so I can't deny that there might be men who see my profile and can't see the value in dating me because they don't like the way that I look. I can't deny that. But I do also think I'm willing to believe that there are men who that's not their philosophy. Um, I think it's harder to believe that because of all the evidence around us all the time. I think it's harder to believe that. I have to challenge myself to believe that. But then I do see little bits and pieces that make that feel real. But I won't lie, the massive weight gain, which was like 100 pounds, definitely impacted the way I date. 100%. And so I just keep I just keep looking back at the time that I was 100 pounds thinner and thinking of what were things other than the size of my body that made me attractive. And those attributes, I still have them. So I need to just really amp them up. Like there were things that were making me attractive back then that had nothing to do with my body. There were things that made me attractive where the guy would have spoken to me on the phone. He would have been like, I'm in love with her. So I need to just, you know, elevate those things.
Yeah. I love that you said that so much. All of that I couldn't agree with more. And yeah, like I've only known you in this body, and I never once have thought about your body. I'm just like, Danielle is the greatest fucking person ever, and I'm obsessed with her, and like she's hilarious and so fun and caring, and like yeah. So I hope there are also, I do
Yeah.
also believe there are like good people out there, and there are men
Yeah.
out there who, share the beliefs that we share. But
Mhm.
I think that's
I
so
also
Thank
I've known
you.
you in everybody. And in everybody, you've been the most amazing person, not because of your body, but because of
Thank
everything that's
you.
underneath the body. So, but I think that it's bullshit if people say that it doesn't affect them and
Right.
whatnot. And if I had to seriously answer the question for you that you posed about why I think Danielle is single, that would be my
Mhm.
answer because of
Mhm.
everything that she has struggled with in her eating and body image and how that's really weighed on her self esteem.
Yeah, like when you watch Love Island, I don't have you ever watched Love Island?
You know, I think I'd be obsessed with the show. I get told 5 times a week I'd be obsessed with it. I've tried to watch it, and I just haven't been able to get into it. But yes, I've, like, seen
You
it.
gotta go through the beginning.
Yeah, the thing is with Love Island, you have to watch like 10 episodes before you're invested, so you have to
Yeah,
push through.
that's next time I'm sick, I always say, which will probably be, like, in 2 days.
But I will say that when I watch shows like that or like The Bachelor or any show where people are dating um in on live on TV, it's triggering. It's because as I said before, like I'm not going to pretend that that belief system isn't real. It is real for many people. It is real. So when I watch shows like that, I'm like, oh, well, there's the proof that that is real. Um, and where was I going with this?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure where I was going with it.
Well,
But
I
yeah.
thought of something as you were saying that, because I've seen, seasons of Bachelor, seasons of Love is Blind, all these other shows where they do occasionally there are people who
Mhm,
aren't a stick. They're not a
mhm.
twig. And if you read the comments about those people, it's like, wow, like good for them that they put
Mhm.
themselves out there. Like
Right.
as if it's like
Yep.
they're just a person looking for love. Like,
Totally.
why does it matter? Why is this even a topic of conversation?
Totally.
Like,
Totally.
good, what do
Totally.
you mean good for them because they're, like, thicker than the normal person you see on these shows? Like, that shouldn't that shouldn't be a point. That's not the point. It's
Yeah.
literally not.
It's like it kind of reminds me of when people say like that she is X. She is fill in the blank for a woman, or she is an X woman. And it's like, you don't have to do the qualifier of woman. Like it's
Right.
that person can just be a fill in the blank person.
She can just be
Like,
smart.
right.
She can just be strong.
Right.
Like,
You don't have to say like she's a really smart woman. Like she's a really smart person.
yeah. Julie,
Yeah.
you're nodding your head a lot. What's going on in your brain?
I'm also just thinking, like, I feel really bad for guys too, because I think
Yeah.
that guys
Yes.
also really
Yes.
struggle with this, and they don't have the
Mhm.
platform that we have to, because they're not as vulnerable sometimes as we are,
Mhm.
to have like the girl talk about it. And I feel bad for them. And it's like all of these people that
Mhm.
take a picture of someone's dating app profile and they
Yep.
put it on TikTok
Yep.
or they put it on something, and it like really breaks my heart. And I think it's like really disgusting behavior and just not nice. And you got bad karma coming your way, and you should stop doing that if you do that.
Mhm.
And you know, like the hat fishing and
Catfishing. What's
yeah, when
catfishing?
someone who's balding wears a hat in their
Oh,
pictures. Oh, you haven't heard of hat fishing?
that's so
No.
Yeah, it's so mean. It's like, well, first of all, I have like a very big soft spot for a bald shaved head. I love that. So like bring on the
Noted.
hat thing. Yeah. But there's like this dating trend about hat fishing, that guys who wear a hat in every single picture, it's because they're balding or whatever the case may be. And it's like, can we just not?
Yeah. I also feel that women see a lot of women talking about this stuff and trying to make a difference in this world, about, you know, appearance and self-esteem and self-value. And men can't find that as readily, and they might be able to find women talking about it, but they can't relate. Like, little plug for Elevation Nation, like I think they do an incredible job at demonstrating what it looks like to talk about real topics for men to have that resource. But I think men don't have any of these resources, but they do experience the exact same effect. Like, that core belief in the world is true for them too. Like, for a lot of people, that's their core belief against men as well. So I agree with you.
Just hard. We're all
Mhm.
people. We all have feelings, and it's like there's got to be more than just judging on the photo. I
Mhm.
actually think the photo is the least appealing part of someone's dating profile.
Mhm.
And people will write in there about me or whatever it is. Do people actually read these? And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, people
If
do.
if you write that, it's like an automatic no
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
me.
Or people will do like period, period, period to answer
Yeah.
their prompts because they like have to put in a character. And it's like, are you serious?
Or they
Like,
don't answer any of the or they don't even do the period. They just keep
right.
it blank, and it's just pictures. And then it's like, okay, so you think you're that good looking that all you need is pictures of yourself for a girl. I don't want to go out with you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this from the dating app founder's perspective.
Mhm.
How can people be I don't want to say there's two directions I can go in. I'm stuck, but
Mhm.
I'll go with this. How can people do a better job at showcasing who they really
Yeah.
are on their dating app profile?
So it's hard to answer this question without sounding like it is a plug for foreplay. but
I mean, listen, it should be.
but this is how I feel. Like, you're a dynamic person. You're not a static person that exists like in 2D behind a camera lens. Like, you're a dynamic person. It's very hard to convey dynamics with pictures, but I think that you can convey it by conveying a relationship in a picture, which is actually why I really like when I see on people's profiles like a picture with their family member. It's not
Yeah.
just that I'm like, oh, cute, he likes his mom. It's also like I can tell the way he's looking at her. I can tell the way they're like, I know they're laughing or something. It's the dynamic part of it that I like. And so, what I really like about having a profile with your friend, or what I would recommend for other apps, and this is just my opinion, is uh, showcasing a dynamic relationship, like showcasing like, this is what I look like when my friend and I are together. Like, this is the kind of person I like. This is the sense of humor I have. You can tell from just a picture of someone and their friend like what they're laughing about. You know, that for me is huge.
Yeah.
I think
Julie.
I just think answering the prompts themselves
Hmm.
and answering them in a positive way. I think when people have on their dating profile, like, you should not go out with me if,
Hmm.
or red flags I look for are,
Hmm.
and you're spinning it in a negative way,
Yeah.
that to me says something about you, that you
Mhm.
would that you seek out the negative answers.
Yes.
Looks like you agree, Alana, with that.
I'm so frustrated by how buzzwordy like red flags and like icks became because the internet became obsessed with them. And now it's like, oh, this person wears like jean shorts that are an inch shorter than I would find acceptable. Like, ick, red flag, like, absolutely not. It's like that literally has nothing to do with who they are. And people just
Mhm.
write people off so easily because of how trendy this concept of I'm finding a million red flags has become.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, the focusing on the negatives is a big thing, and to Danielle's point, all the dating apps now, or most of them, allow for video content. And so
Yeah.
if you're a guy who doesn't have pictures because you're a guy who doesn't take pictures when he goes out, like film. I mean, hot take, but like film a little selfie. I've seen some pretty hilarious selfies of guys
Mhm.
talking to the camera and like making some kind of joke. And I thought it was extremely attractive, and it added another element that was missing from their profile because they were just being themselves. Um, but I think what's really difficult is you try to convey, you're given a limited template to try and convey every aspect of your personality, right? I am an extremely, um, I'm a very academic person. I really like to like challenge myself intellectually. I enjoy deeper conversations over small talk. I actually like have social anxiety in small talk situations because I don't know like how to do it and I don't like it. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But I also have this really playful side to my personality. And I was looking at not our foreplay profile, but my other dating app profile the other night. And I was looking at it and I was like, wait, I look like the most serious person because my answer was like, you also like deep conversations over superficial ones. And you also believe that people and experiences matter more than things. And
Mhm.
there's this whole other element of my personality that's missing. And I'm like, wow, I'm a really boring person on this dating app profile. And
Right.
and
And it's
that's
like you
also
also
really
like
hard.
things. You also like
Yeah.
silly, superficial conversations sometimes, but it's so hard to properly articulate all you can't. It's not possible.
And like we're not gonna do away with dating apps. Like they're here
No.
to stay. Like that they're here to stay. Like they're not going anywhere. Dating apps are all trying to do things that make people's profiles more dynamic, that, make people feel more comfortable showing certain sides of themselves. Like I think voice notes was great from Hinge. I know people make fun of them. I think I've heard some really great ones that I like. I've also heard ones that I don't like, and so it helps me see that I don't like that person's their sense of humor or whatnot. But
Yeah.
what I will say is we try to, like Julie said, package the entire personality into that profile. And I think that does two things. One, the person who's meeting you now has a general like schema of what they think you are, but you can't possibly just be that because you can't put your personality into into a profile. And two, those things about you, like having deep conversations, or maybe even having a really sarcastic sense of humor, often don't show up on the first date.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're trying to put everything that you are in the profile, but then the person's going to meet you and you might not be comfortable being that thing just yet. And then do they think that like you catfish them or like you're a liar and like that's not at all what you're like? That's the problem, is like that expectations are not the same as reality. And unfortunately, um, by default, dating apps do that because they create a profile. It's like creating a resume. It's like you just think that you know the person from like those things that they tried to package in.
I also think we get caught up with trying to craft a profile that we think is going to be appealing to someone else. So we're trying to give people what they want
Mhm.
instead of just actually putting down who we are.
Right.
Totally.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. I went out with somebody last year who he made a comment like, I knew you were going to look exactly the way that you did in your profile picture in real life. And I was like, how did you know? And he was like, oh, because I know all the angles now. Like, I know that if I look at a girl's profile and she has this angle and this angle and this angle, it's because she doesn't actually look like that in real life. And so I know at this point now not to match
Oh
with her
my
because she's
god.
not going to look like that.
Scary.
And I was like, wait, this is what it's come to? All the angles? What's
Scary.
happening?
That's crazy. Well, what I was gonna say when you brought up like the voice note thing and the video thing and how like the internet loved to trash those concepts, it's like there are so many great ones out there. There are so many funny ones, and you can get so much personality from them. So like, don't just cling on to this idea of like, well, this one person's was awkward and weird, so everyone's is going to be, or oh, I don't like when this person who posted a picture like this turned out to be that way, so I'm going to now write off everybody else who has a similar type of picture. Like, you can't do that. Every single person is their own unique individual, and you're not even being fair to yourself if you make these like grand checklists or crossing off based on a certain thing. You're not giving incredible, wonderful, great potential partners a chance.
Mhm.
That's not fair to them. That's not fair to you.
Mhm.
I just want to piggyback off of that to bring up something that our friend who's a therapist told us when she was over last week.
Mhm.
Something, because it was really eye opening for us
Yeah.
to get the male's perspective, because she has
Male
clients
clients.
who complain about dating also. And for us, we all have the dating app fatigue, more or less. We all are like, get me off of the app. Can we just meet? And this sucks. And for Danielle, especially, like her big thing is that she really, really, really hates texting and would rather just meet. And so when she matches right away, she's like, can we just meet?
And I thought that that was more attractive, by the way, too. I was like, I like that about myself, and I think guys like it also. Well,
Right.
I was wrong because not every guy likes that.
Right. And our friend's perspective was, we don't, for the most part, usually it's more typical that a guy will pick up the bill on the first date. I'll pay the check. And um, for guys, it can get really expensive. And for girls, we don't think anything of it because we're like, well, let's just see if the vibe is there in real life. Like, let's just go out. And now guys who have been on dating apps for a while and have taken a bunch of girls out are now thinking, well, actually, well, let's see if we have any chemistry first before we even go out.
Let's text. Like, they're
Yeah.
like, let's actually text a lot before I take you out.
Right, because it's my money now that
Right.
is being depleted.
Right.
And so you don't think anything of it, and you are just like, let's just go out and skip the small talk. But I'm thinking I want to small talk a little bit because maybe we don't have any kind of vibe at all. Now, the downside of that is that your texting chemistry can be very different than your in-person chemistry. I've experienced that many, many times, and so that's the downfall. And I wish it was more normal to pick up the phone and have a phone call before the first date or a FaceTime before the first date, because I feel like that's a great way to filter people out. But I think, women listening to this should keep that in mind, that maybe it's not that guys are playing games and they're not interested. Maybe it's that they don't want to keep picking up the check for women that they don't have anything in common with, because they didn't get to see before the date if they were going to have any type of chemistry.
Here's my pushback on that, though, because I completely agree. And I think that that's something I could talk about for days and weeks of like, should he be actually getting the check every time? Like, what does it say if they ask to split it at the end of the date? But I'm also a firm believer of, if there's a guy that's super interested in you, then when you say like, let's meet up and let's go out, they're going to be like, fuck yeah. They're not going to question that or think that. But also, to put it back on the guy, like, if they're not ready for that, why don't they just say like, let's FaceTime, let's jump on the phone and get that vibe check.
Totally. And so when I was talking to our friend who's a therapist, and I was explaining to her that basically this guy who I was having really good text chemistry with, but regardless of the chemistry, I just don't like texting. He asked me a question about religion, and like, for me, like, I have so much to say on the topic. It's not that I'm shallow or not intellectual. That's not why I'm not going to give you a long answer. It's just because it's just the opposite. I have so many like philosophical thoughts on it.
And you don't want to just start sending essays.
Exactly. And this is a conversation for me that like is date talk. Like, they say don't talk about religion on dates, like, not me.
Hold on. Let me ask you this. Do you say to people, I'm not the best texter, but like, would love to meet up? Or do you just not really respond and then it fizzles?
So that's what it would be. I would have just responded with short answers, and then he probably would have thought like, okay, she's, not an engaging conversationalist. But when I spoke to our friend about it, who's a therapist, she was like, why don't you write to him. She was like, "It's not too late." Like,
She was like, "Let me challenge you."
she was like, "Well, let me challenge you to do this." She was like, "Why don't you write to him and tell him like like I actually really enjoy having these kinds of conversations. I hope my messages didn't come across like I'm disinterested. I just this is the kind of stuff I'd love to talk about in person, or over FaceTime. Like, care to do either of those?" And
Love
so I was like, "Oh, I'm loving this."
communication.
By the way, I wrote that. She didn't write that.
Proud.
She just suggested that I approach it in that way. And he actually, like, unmatched me after that.
No, he
Like,
answered you.
No.
No, he answered you
he
first.
answered me and he said, "Well, I have a really big test coming up and, like, I won't be able to do that for, like, at least the next 2 weeks." And I said, "Okay, good luck!" Exclamation point. Get it. Like, "Oh, got it. Good luck!" Exclamation point. Whatever I said. Like, I was super friendly back.
Yeah.
But then he unmatched me. And I thought that was interesting. Like, do some people just want a pen pal? Like, maybe some people, like, because if that's genuine that you can't get together for 2 weeks, but you are still actually on the dating
Right.
apps engaging with people, then what that tells me is that you like to use the dating apps for reasons other than meeting up with people. And that I find interesting. Like, you
Mhm.
like to just use them
To talk,
to
like, get
explore, to explore, like, to get likes,
When
to
you're bored.
yeah, it's
yeah, validation.
right. I can't, like, relate to that.
Well, I'm frustrated for you with the unmatching thing because unmatching is it could literally be, like, because of nothing. It could be an accident, or
Mhm.
it could be, like, something you said for some reason really rubbed them the wrong
Right,
way, and they're like, "Nope, need to delete this person,"
right,
but you don't know,
right.
and that's what's so hard about it, but I always go back to, you know what? For one reason or another, that's they're not your person. If they didn't
Mhm.
wanna continue that conversation, if they didn't wanna explore that, like, there's nothing you said that
Yeah,
was wrong in any way,
Mhm.
totally.
and it is so strange that that was the reaction.
Also, the older we get and the less time we have for ourselves, like, our time is so valuable, and to me, it's like, great, that was an hour and a half, 2 hours that you didn't have to waste on a
Yeah,
date with someone who's
Mhm,
clearly not your person, because
mhm,
yeah,
usually when you go on a first date, you're not back until, like, 2 or 3 hours later because you're so bubbly and
mhm.
adorable and people love you, and then you come back and you're like, "Yeah, it was a great conversation," but, whatever the case may be, so that's, like, 2 hours of your time that you got back.
Absolutely, and I've come such a long way because to pull in what we were talking about earlier, if this had been a year ago, I would have been convinced that he took another look at my profile, that he looked at me again, thought that I was too, for the lack of a better word, big for him, and that he unmatched me because he realized he doesn't wanna go out with a girl that's bigger than him. Like, that used to be, like, my entire my every that was my bias. Everything I saw that bias in every single situation. So, I've come a really long way that I can be unmatched and recognize, well, this saved me time, this
Mhm.
saved me energy, and like you said, a lot of, like, I don't wanna go out with somebody who was offended by something that I said in that instance. Because whatever I said, to me, it wasn't offensive. To me, that's just how I speak, so if you're offended by that, then we're not a match.
absolutely, and I'm really proud of you, and
Thank
I feel
you.
like that I'm glad you said that because I think that's really inspiring to a lot of people who are probably struggling in so many different ways, and, just hearing that you were able to get to that point, I think is gonna give a lot of people hope, so thank you for sharing that.
I really hope I give people hope. I'm telling you, whoever is listening to this, I never thought that I would be able to be where I am right now, and I'm still, like, have so many insecurities about the way that I look, and I still am challenging thoughts all the time, but I never thought that I would be able to reappraise those thoughts the way that I can, and, like, the mind is so malleable, like, you can grow. You can always grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, going back to our time is valuable, as much as I would love to talk to you guys for literally ever, we can't. But I want to end on, instead of asking you for the best piece of dating advice, and instead of asking why is the other one single, I want to end on a note of, Julie, what is one thing you've learned from Danielle? And Danielle, what is one thing you've learned from Julie?
Ooh.
Just one?
About what?
Life, yourself, dating,
Wow.
Earth,
Wow.
love,
There's so much that
friendship.
I've learned from you.
Go ahead, take the floor. And also, why am I single? You didn't even
Well, you're single because you are just too good to settle
Okay,
for
all
anybody
right, all
that
right.
like you just haven't settled, which is fine. And you shouldn't. And if that means being alone forever, then great, you shouldn't settle.
Send that to my parents.
Well, you have each other, so there's
Yeah,
that.
there you go.
yeah, like we're not lacking in like emotional intimacy because we have such a strong friendship, but as Julie said, there are other things that are missing.
We have no interest in each other, but we love each other.
But something that I've learned from Julie is, and I still haven't adopted it, but I have witnessed it and like it inspires me, is like just putting yourself in the situations, just putting yourself in the situations that will open you up to meeting new people and just open you up to like just embellishing your life in general, that like your life could be better if you're putting yourself in these situations. You don't know how it's going to go. So it's something that I still have yet to adopt because of my own fears and laziness in some way, but it's something that I am learning from you regularly, and I want to be more like that.
I learned from Danielle that it's okay to not do things that you don't want to do. And that like you could be happier not doing things that you don't want to do. She is very much like I don't want to do that. It's like, do you want to go out with me tonight? I don't want to do that.
She's like, should we go to Plug Uglies or whatever the fuck it's called? And I'm like, no, you can.
And you know what? Like, good for you that you like don't do what you don't want to do. I mean, you're also an amazing friend and you will do it if I really want to. But my whole life was very much a people pleaser and need to do what everyone wants me to do. And it burns you out. And your time also matters. And what you like to do in your time also matters. And like, it's okay to say no. So that's a big one that I've learned. I think I've gotten better at because of you. So thanks.
I need to get better at both of these things. So I guess I'll be spending more time with you, which is perfect because we still need to play pickleball. So we
Yes, we do.
We do.
Yeah,
Carly
we do.
Sherrisburg is no joke up there.
Yep. We're going. You guys, thank you so much. I like truly just love you both so much. And every conversation, whether it's on a microphone or not, I know I said this to you guys maybe like 2 or 3 dinners ago where like I left and I was like, I just feel so good after spending time with you
Oh,
guys. And that's something
Likewise.
that something I learned from both of you is really just to surround yourself with people who you feel good after. Like I have, some friends of a very long time who like I leave the room and I'm like, are they talking shit about me or
Yeah.
like questioning things that I said?
Mhm.
And I remember like walking home from a dinner or lunch or something with you guys and just feeling like, wow, like I genuinely love spending time with them and I feel so accepted and so good about myself when I'm with them. Like I need to find more of those people and stop spending time with people who I feel the opposite and like depleted from. So thank you
Mhm.
guys for that.
well, we
learning,
feel the
'cause
same way
it
about
was
you.
really big.
Likewise.
And I want to share what I learned about you from you.
What?
I learned from you genuinely that so what's interesting is that you are like a person, like you're a persona, you are seeing other people, you're Alana Dunn, you're a face for sure. And so I thought that there's no way that someone that portrays themselves that way to other people when you're one-on-one with them, that's actually genuinely who they are and can be. And I learned from you that there are really genuine people out there that are just being themselves in a more public way. And they are good people who like really try and help the underdogs. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I second that.
Negative self-talk. As you started saying that, I thought you were going to say like people who put themselves out there in like a really public way, but are actually like really fucking insecure. That's literally where I thought you were going.
Oh my God. No.
We'll schedule time with you and our friend who's a therapist. We'll get you in there.
We'll get you time with her.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. Where can everybody find you?
You can find us on TikTok foreplay underscore app underscore for underscore singles.
I'll have it linked. I'll have it linked.
Or on Instagram at Fourplay Dating. And then, of course, the most important part is the App Store. So you can download Fourplay in the greater New York City area and the greater Boston area.
And if you're a single guy and you want to actually find us, we are on Fourplay and we are waiting for you.
And they're really, really fun to hang out with. Thanks for listening, daters. I hope today's episode made you feel just a little bit less alone out there, no matter what your status might be. Give your finger a break from swiping and hit that follow and review button instead. And if you have any burning questions or want to share your own dating horror stories, reach out to seeingotherpeoplepodcast@gmail.com. And in the meantime, keep on seeing other people.